Hello creatures, welcome to Bound by Words. This is my Preptober planning vlog, or at least this was supposed to be the first day I am filming it. It's not going as planned, to say the least. So I have about half a week off of work, which was supposed to be very focused Bound by Words work. So I'm filming extra YouTube videos, I'm getting my novel together, I'm getting ready for NaNoWriMo essentially. And to do that, I bought, this is actually right next to me, is a black dry erase board, and I was so excited about this dry erase board, but I got it in the mail, and if you can see right by my shoulder there is a scratch. There's a big chunk. It actually looks really tiny on the camera, but there is like a 2-inch strip of the dry erase material just taken out of it, and I was so heartbroken. So I was supposed to start filming yesterday, but I didn't because my dry erase board came damaged. So I told Amazon, I was like, I want the exact same product. I love this board. I love the aesthetic of it. It wasn't very expensive. So I got the new one today, and it was also damaged, and they won't replace it again. I have to just return it and then buy a new one separate, and I don't think I want to take my chances with that. So the reason why I was so excited about this dry erase board, and it had so much to do with my Preptober planning, is because this year I am focusing on using the snowflake method of planning, something that I guess I've heard of loosely, but I haven't really read anything of until this year, and I'm very excited to try it because I am a discovery writer at heart. So the snowflake method is essentially you start with a little bit of your story, a snowflake size bit, and you add to it until it grows, sort of like rolling a snowball down the hill. So the first part is 1 to 2 sentences about the premise of your story, what your protagonist is doing, what's happening in the background, what their driving motivation is, whatever it is, that idea that made you want to write a story, to start with that. And then after you have that solid and you know that's like what you want to use, you then write a paragraph about your story. You start including maybe things about the setting, maybe things about other characters, stuff like that. And then you like expand it more. So you do like the 2 sentences and then a paragraph and then maybe a 3-paragraph essay or a 5-paragraph essay. And then whenever you get to those multiple paragraphs, that's whenever you break out into making an outline. So the reason I wanted to try this, I wrote my last book with Save the Cat, which I really like. It's a really easy to understand book, and it is great for people who are learning storytelling because it talks about the story elements and structures and why things happen in a really easy to understand way. But I am not really good with outlines, so even though I tried really hard, I felt like my novel just didn't turn out the way I wanted it to be. It definitely wasn't as polished, wasn't as concise, wasn't as coherent, but I have learned a lot in the last year since NaNoWriMo. So since then, I wrote about half a novel. I ended up scrapping it. I wrote some short stories and stuff like that, and then I started this new book. And what I wanted to do for NaNoWriMo this year is I wanted to take my 1 to 2 sentence premise, and I wanted to write it really big on the top of or in the middle of this whiteboard, and then around the whiteboard I would have things like my progress markers, maybe motivational things, maybe milestones I hit. I was sort of going to figure that out as I went. So not having this ready blew a small hole in my Preptober planning, but not anything too serious. I looked online and I found a really decently priced one at Michael's, so I'm going to go pick that up tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be right back on track. But for the rest of today, we have some scary work ahead of us. So if you have been following my other vlogs, I've been having problems with my book. I wrote it and then I let it rest because of burnout really from Camp NaNoWriMo, and then I wrote it more and I let it rest, and whenever I came back to it, it didn't seem like a cohesive unit. And eventually, through a little bit of it digging and working with it and rewriting, I realized the reason it didn't feel like solid was because it didn't have one set premise. The idea that I wrote the book off was a vague description of the setting, and it wasn't really a motivation description for the protagonist. So the goal became to create this premise to write my book around. But in the process of doing that, I realized that my book just really wasn't what I wanted it to be. It's definitely not something in its current state, in its current situation, that I would want to pursue all the way to publishing. So I halted it and I said, you know what? I'm going to start at word 0 and I'm going to write the book over again. And I did sort of just pants the first couple scenes. It was just fun, and I love that motivating energy behind chapter 1s. And then I decided, you know, as much as I love this novel, and this is so scary, especially to say on camera that I'm gonna like put out for all of you guys to see, is maybe I just need to step back from this book, and I don't want to be a quitter. I'll probably come back to it, but there is a good chance that I have to step back and I might have to work on another project and revisit this to see how I can make it better. Or there's the chance that I'll find a slightly different premise that I can use, like the same protagonist or maybe similar like setting qualities for a new and a different premise. So part of my Preptober and what I'm working on for the rest of tonight is I am brainstorming 5 solid book premises that I can write an entire book on to choose from for this year's NaNoWriMo. So I might start with things that are similar to what I was going for in this book. I might not. My list is probably going to be way more than 5 long, but I want to have 5 solid premises where I read it and I think I would read that book. I would pick it up off of the shelf. So those are my goals for today. Happy Friday. I totally lied to you guys on Wednesday. I was supposed to update you yesterday and I didn't. I had a horrible headache all day and it ended up being like a migraine and I just really didn't want to be on camera, but I did get a lot of stuff done. I returned my damaged dry erase boards and I got this nice one from Michael's. If anyone's interested in any kind of whiteboard, it wasn't that expensive. Unfortunately, it was twice as much as the other ones, but it was $30. It's really sturdy and it's framed and my markers are super vibrant on it, so I really like it. And then I ran some other errands while I was out. And then in the evening I came up with this template. This is just what I want to write, sort of where I am going to use like my different colored pens and maybe some fancy fonts if I could bring myself to write nicely. But I didn't have the heart to share my premise for this story yet, but it's going to go up in this box at the top. I am still torn between whether or not this is going to be a rewrite or a totally new project. 2 of the ideas I had would be a rewriting of some of the concepts that I had in my old project, but then one of them is just a totally new project, and a part of me thinks that maybe that's just what I need for my sanity, but I was really into the world that I was writing, so I don't know yet, so I don't want to write anything on the board. I have a little bit more that I want to brainstorm and piece through before I get there, but I do want to include, and there's a little bit of a light reflecting, but I'm going to have a writing streak and then a days written section on this board. Now the reason I want to do a separate writing streak, because I do use the NaNoWriMo website, but I also stay up late, and anything you log after midnight counts as like the day it technically is, so the next day. But when I'm counting, I always count like whatever I write before I go to bed is that one day. So if I write in the morning and I add 200 words, and then I write in the late evening and it's after midnight and I write another 200 words, it's going to count that second 200 words as the next day. So for that reason, I want to keep my own writing streak, because last year I just knew that the writing streak in the Nano forum was wrong for me specifically. I also want to keep days written, because I think that would be really nice to see like how many days did I actually work on this project and how much did I get done. And then below this section, I'm going to have a quote each week. I'm really excited about this. I really like writing quotes. I think they're really motivational. It's one of the reasons that I really like Instagram as a form of writing motivation. And then this section over here, it's a little bit cut off, but that square just says week 1. And then this is an example of how my goals are going to be written. So this would be the number of what I want to reach this week, and then that would be the number of what I'm actually at for the manuscript. So this section will change every week. But this section under, I have totally blank. I'm not really sure what I want to add yet. If I think of something good before Nano, then I will add it, of course. There's a week and a half away, but I think it might be better to just leave it blank and then have a week by week, what's important. These are the live streams I'm attending. Maybe this was my best day. This is something that I need to do on my manuscript. I could even put post-it notes here, a mini Kanban board with this is what I want to get done kind of thing. So I'm brainstorming what I want to go here. If you're watching this and it is before the NaNoWriMo time, then please give me suggestions. I love hearing what other writers are doing. In other semi-related news, I finished the book that I was reading yesterday, and I'm going to be finishing the audiobook that I'm on either today or tomorrow. And I decided last week that I really like the idea of having a reading log, and I think I decided yesterday that this is something I'm definitely going to do, and I'm going to log my last couple books that I read, and then I'm going to, from this point on, do a writer's reading log. So I think this is really common for people to log how the book ends for when there's breaks in your reading pattern. So if I read the first book and then I have to wait several months or even a year for the next book to come out or for the next book to be available to me, I want to know what happened at the end, and I want to know what the most important parts are to remember before I move on and read the next book. But also something that I started doing as a writer a few years ago when I got really serious about getting better at writing and learning storycraft is I started evaluating every book that I read and every story that I listen to, like audiobook, something like good or bad. Sometimes it's one thing, sometimes it's like two. I don't usually make a whole list, but I do think about things that stand out in the story that I want to use to improve my writing, so to say. And it could be positive or it could be negative. Sometimes I stop and I think this culture is really realistic, and I love that even though it's fictional, it sounds almost like it's just another country in our world, which is nice and immersive. And sometimes it's negative, like the lack of subplots is something I've definitely thought about some books, or also that side characters don't seem to have their own motivations, that their only purpose in life is to help the main character, which is kind of unrealistic. And these are things that for the last 2 years I have been thinking as I read books, and I really think that I want to have a log for them. I'm really excited about that. I've never really had a reading log before, so if you are like a veteran reading log keeper, let me know what you include in yours in the description below. For now, I think I'm just going to do like the title, the author, when I read it, how it ends, maybe like a short blurb about like what happened and this is how it ends. And then I'm going to include my like writer advice to myself that I learned from reading the book. That's how I like to think about it. Things I learned from reading the book. I'm trying to get as much reading done now as I can because I know I'm not going to read very much during NaNoWriMo because I'll be spending a lot of my free time writing and like looking at my computer and doing novel fast drafting things that I'm really not going to be in the mood to read. So I'm trying to get as much done this week and next week as I can.
This time nothing will escape my sight. I see the stars and the planets soon follow. Expect to have the universe by tomorrow. Just sit back and relax.
So I had some exciting things happen today. It's one of my friend's first birthdays, which is just crazy. I feel like she was just born and she's like running around and eating goldfish and everything. So I stopped by just to see her for a few minutes. She was lovely. It was great. I'm also going back to the gym today, which is just really exciting for me. When I lived in Japan, I lifted almost every day. Weightlifting was a huge hobby of mine. And then when I came back, I kept it for a few months. I really was still in the swing of things. Several times a week I would go. But since about February or March, I've been having some difficult health problems where sometimes I don't even feel like being up. I get migraines so often that functioning is hard sometimes, let alone lifting, but I'm finally at a point where everything has been very manageable. So I am very excited to go back to the gym, but writing related stuff, we're here for writing related stuff. I cleaned my desk off most of the way today. It's like 80% good. I mean, you can see there's like a little bit of stuff here. Some of the stuff stays here. There's some clutter on the other side that is like off camera that I want to move around. I'm probably not going to be doing that today. It's going to be a tomorrow or Monday project. But the main time-consuming thing that I did for my project so far today is bullet journal stuff. And it's only 6:30, so I'm definitely going to come back to the brainstorming and working stuff out part of it later. But bullet journal stuff is really important, and I wanted to make sure during this week that I got as much of this done as I could. Now, for years, I religiously used a bullet journal, and it's really the best way that I found to keep my thoughts organized. I'm very forgetful, and I'm usually good when it comes to things like work schedules and like appointments and stuff like that, if that makes sense. But when it comes to using my time wisely, like my free time, I have found that if I don't use a bullet journal, because I haven't been using one for the last few months, I feel like I'm not getting a lot done. I feel like it's really easy for me to get distracted. I take a lot of days off as opposed to just a couple here and there. So I'm really getting back in the habit of using this. So this is my spread for October. I like this side more than I like this side, but this is just for the end of the month. This is my spread for this week. I'm a big fan of. I don't know why. It's like so simple, but I love it so much. So basically with my bullet journal, I have spreads like this where like 1 week spans 2 pages. Sometimes I do 1 week per page, where it's just really a to-do list of things that I want to get done and just a way for me to track how productive I'm being, so to say. Like if I feel like, oh, I haven't done a lot in my novel this week, and I look back and I say, oh my gosh, look how many things I did every single day, I'm not really going to beat myself up about it, if that makes sense. So I did my spread for this week, of course, at the beginning of this week, and then today I did a spread for next week so that I have it ready and done, because the problem I've been having with the last few months is that I always put off doing next week's spread until like Sunday. My weeks start on Monday because that's when my work schedule week starts. I don't know why they picked Monday, but making my schedule adhere to that. Makes it a little bit easier. So my weeks start on Monday, and sometimes I wait until Sunday to do my schedule, and then sometimes on Sunday I don't feel like it or I'm busy, so I think, oh, it's fine, I'll just do it Monday. And then sometimes Monday comes and goes, and I think what happens some of the other months is I would do that halfway through the week, and then I would think, well, there's no point in doing it this week. Or like I would start the last week of a month and I would think, oh, well, I can just wait until next month, and I would either forget or I would put it off. And it's sort of like one bad habit led to another bad habit, led to another bad habit. So even just this week of using my bullet journal, I feel a lot more put together. I feel like I'm more aware of when I'm getting what kind of stuff done and when I'm not doing things. So one of my favorite and most useful things in a bullet journal, and I'm going to show you March page because it's cute, is a habit tracker, and it's a list of things that I want to do either every day or a certain number of times each week. And then having this list, I actually check off the days that I do them, and by doing that I can look and see when I'm not doing things. So I can look at my habit tracker at any given time and say, oh my gosh, I haven't gone to bed on time. I have a bedtime now. It's like a new thing. But I can say I haven't gone to bed on time in 4 days. Like, I can't let that just be a thing. And the reason I have a bedtime now is because I will stay up until 2 a.m. with no regrets every single night. But I recently got put on an earlier shift at work and I have to get up earlier. And it's very hard for me to get up in the morning. So I'm telling myself that I have to be in bed by 12:30 every night. So my bedtime's not even that early. But I put it as a habit tracker thing because I know throughout this week I've definitely not done that at least 3 days. So with like that being said, my goal is to get some of this bullet journal spread stuff out of the way for November, before November. That way there's no excuse not to do it. I can't say I'm too busy. It's just done already and it's ready for me. So this is my theme page for November, and this is where my habit tracker will be. I haven't done it yet, but I did the theme page and I made this NaNoWriMo goals calendar. And then I also penciled in how I wanted the first 2 weeks to look so that I could just go back through and draw them in pen whenever I was ready. But this is one of my favorite things for NaNoWriMo, and that's why I spent time in my bullet journal today to make sure that I had this done. So this is my word goal tracker for the month, and I really like using it daily goals and weekly goals. And the reason for that is, and I think everybody should use both of them, is because sometimes I am under on my daily goals. 1, 2, maybe even 3 days a week, but I'm over on my weekly goal and I'm still on track. So if I just say, for make it easy, I schedule myself 2,000 words a day for the first week. Maybe the first day I'm off and I sit and I do live streams all day and I'm really pumped about the event and I get 6,000 words done. And then later in the week I have a headache and I write 500 words. Then that one day it's going to show like I'm under my word count. But then if you look at the weekly goal, I'll still be way over. So I really like that, because if there is a week where I miss a lot of days, I can still see like how far off I am. I might miss 3 days for whatever reason, and maybe I'm only 500 words behind, so it's less stressful. Or vice versa, maybe it's the first or second week and I miss 3 or 4 days, and I can now see that I'm 5,000 words behind, and I know exactly how ahead or behind I am. Now the NaNoWriMo website does have like a digital version where they estimate how long it'll take you to meet your goal if you continue at your current pace. I don't always like that because it's just an average of what you've done beforehand. It's not like an accurate representation of like what your max word count day is. They don't take that into account. They don't take into account what you're planning. So it's something that fluctuates almost every day. If you're on the NaNoWriMo website, you know what I mean. You can have it say like, oh, you'll finish November 20th one day, and then 2 or 3 days later it'll say, oh, you're gonna finish November 30th, and then the next day it's like, oh, you're gonna finish December 2nd, even if you're on track. I'm gonna go to the gym, very excited, and then I'm gonna work on brainstorming, premise comparing kind of stuff in the night. So just some creative work. I really like the idea of starting a new project. Even though I do feel guilty now that I've said it a few times on camera, I think it would be good for me to just start from scratch on a new project. But my main concern with this is I have a habit of not finishing things. The only things that I start and finish consistently are books. And I've been trying to be better about this lately, and my bullet journal is something that helps me with that. But when I started the last story, it really felt like it was going to be like maybe my debut novel. And now I'm thinking, I don't know if this is the story I want to be known for. I don't know if this is what I want my debut novel to be, because a person's debut novel really sets the tone for who they are as an author in the world, whether you're indie or traditionally publishing. Specifically with traditionally publishing, other companies will look at how successful your first book is whenever they're deciding if they want your second, third book, other series, whatever. When you're self-publishing, you can pretty much do whatever you want, but the better your first book does, the more eyes you get on your project. So I really want my debut novel to be something I am extremely proud of.
The work can wait. No need to hurry.
Alright, so this is going to be my last installment in my Preptober vlog. Unfortunately, work stole my entire weekend. We are very hectic just with staffing the store right now, and the schedule keeps getting rewritten and redone, which is very uncommon, so I'm trying to be the best team sport and help as much as I can. It is Wednesday the 28th. We have just a couple more days until NaNoWriMo, and I want to fill you guys in on what I got done and what I still have to do. So first things first, back in my bullet journal, I got a lot more done. I got my theme page done. I know it's really simple, but that's sort of what I was going for this month. And I got the bare bones of my habit tracker done. I'm probably going to decorate that page a little bit more, but what's important is I have the tracker itself up. That way I can start using it on the first if I don't get to decorating before then. I had already showed you guys the next page is my NaNoWriMo goal list. I haven't got around to making my goals yet, and that's mostly because of my work schedule. So I have a little bit of a different method of making my goals, and I almost made a whole video about this, but I thought it would be rather dry. But I make a spread like this that has weekly and daily goals on it, and I go through and I write my work schedule. So I write the schedule Starbucks gives me since I don't have any control over that, and then I write my editing schedule that I choose for myself. I also add school and any important deadlines or due dates or anything that I have going on. So I might pencil in, and I do all of this in pencil. Super important step. I pencil in when I'm editing YouTube videos and when I'm posting them, just the big things. So I don't write I need to do laundry, and I don't write when I'm posting on Instagram, but I do post those bigger time-consuming things so that I can see how busy I am on each day. Then I go through and I pick a weekly goal. Now, my weekly goal sometimes reflects how busy I am during the week. I know last year I had a huge test at the beginning of December, so I actually did really heavy at the beginning of the month and really light at the end of the month. That way, as the month went on, I could write less and study more. So last year I did 20,000 the first week, 15,000 the second week, and then 10,000 and 5,000. This year is going to be way different. So I am actually working way more than I'm available at Starbucks, and I'm starting the hardest course in my editing certificate program on November 2nd. So I don't actually think I'm gonna schedule myself super hard in the first week, if that makes sense. If you break the 50,000 word goal up into 4 weeks, it ends up being 12,500 words a week. I'll probably round that up to 13,000. My initial thought was I could do 15,000 the first week and 15,000 the second week, but even taking those 2,000 off, I think is a really healthy goal to have during such a busy week. But I do get really excited during the beginning of Nano, so I tend to get a lot more work done. I'm hoping that works out in my favor, and I'm planning on doing this whole scheduling thing, honestly, if not tonight, probably tomorrow, at least the first week to get it done, and then I'll probably pencil in a tentative schedule for next week. Because of all of the scheduling mishaps and stuff for work, I don't have my schedule for the second week yet, but I did talk to my manager and I know how many days I'm going to be working, so I can in my head say this is how many words I want to write on the days I'm working, and this is how many words I want to write on the days I'm off. So that's what I do with my schedule. I write in all those important life things, and then I arbitrarily assign myself words. Usually it's the days I'm working at Starbucks and the days I'm not. And then I look at the schedule again, and I look at days where I'm really busy, and I take words off of those days, and I move them to days where I'm less busy. So for example, on Sunday, Sundays, I'm not available to work at Starbucks, so I'm always off if I'm scheduling myself 3,000 words every day that I'm off that week. But on Sunday, I have video editing and posting to do for Monday, which is what usually happens. I might take 1,000 words off and break it apart among like other days that week, or even just move it to another day I'm off where I'm not doing a lot. So I do that for the whole month. That way I have goals that are based on my schedule and not just an even number of words each day, because if I wrote that, I know I'm going to have days where I do really well, but then I stop because that was the end of my goal. And then I'm going to have days where I'm really struggling and I don't meet the goal and I'm not going to want to like push for it. So I like to give myself a little bit of a balance, because even though I still have those days where I come up short, the days that I write more have the potential to take care of the days that I write less, if that makes sense. But I also worked on in my bullet journal the first 2 weeks of November, the spreads that I'll be using. And this one's like not decorated yet, but the spread itself is out, which is what's the most important thing. So what I have left to do in regards to prepping in my bullet journal for NaNoWriMo is I'm going to do the next 2 weeks, like the last 2 weeks of NaNoWriMo, the spreads. That way they're totally done and I don't have to take any time out of my day. Decorating comes last, but it would be awesome if I can get that done as well. But I only have like 3 more days to work with. It's almost 11 o'clock today, so I can get some odds and ends thing done, but nothing absolutely brilliant. On other fronts, so last time we were talking a lot about my premise dilemma and my brainstorming and everything like that. So this past weekend, I actually met with a friend of mine who's a writer who participates in Nano regularly, and they write both self-help and fantasy books, and it's just really exciting to talk to them and to get their opinion and insight on things. So we were really just talking generally what Flurry's jumped up on the printer next to me, but we were talking about what we like writing, what we plan on working on. We didn't really get very far into that, but like things that we've read that we've really enjoyed recently in Facebook groups and stuff that we're in. We talked a little bit about the publishing industry in the middle of our conversation, and it was almost unprompted because we hadn't talked about my whole premise dilemma that I was having and all this like confusion and stress about what I'm writing. But in the middle of the conversation, he just like stopped me and was like, hey, don't forget, you don't have to know everything before you start writing a book. And it's funny because as a discovery writer and a pantser, I would definitely share that advice. But for some reason, whenever he said that to me, it sort of clicked in my head that I am probably not going to have this planned out all before I start NaNoWriMo. I'm not going to have the premise ready, which I say like all planned out, but that's all I was really preparing, was that 1 to 3 sentence premise description of the book. But I think it's okay that I don't know that up front. I think the more I write, the better idea I'm going to get of the characters. And we talked a little bit about just how intimidating it is to learn about story structure. So you learn how to write and how stories are told, how to do it effectively. You see all these advice and tools and how overwhelming it can be. And it just made me remember that what I enjoyed about writing was just sitting down at my computer and writing. Some of my favorite scenes and short stories were not planned, they just came to. And then I did a little bit more thinking about this while I was brainstorming for my like premise that I'm putting on ice right now, but I realized that there were a lot of good ideas that if you took down to the bare bones like that, to the 1 to 3 sentences, they're gonna sound cheesy and they're gonna sound cliche. Like, say the idea, here's a protagonist and they are the daughter of one of the most renowned members of the mafia who was brutally murdered, and their motivation throughout the story is revenge for this crime that was committed on their parents. That sounds like such an interesting story, but it also sounds like it's been done before. The child avenging their parents for some wrongdoing is a very common trope, which makes it sound a little bit overdone in my head. But that book could be written in a vastly unique way. So where I'm getting at here is I think that a lot of the ideas I've had, and I'm not throwing any of them away, I still have them written down. I have 4 premise ideas that I really like that I think I could work with and use, and then I have 1 sort of backup idea that I liked enough not to exit off the list. So I'm keeping those on the side, but I think when I was reading those and I was creating those, that I had this sense of this isn't good enough, it's not a full enough idea, it's a little bit overdone, it's a little bit melodramatic. But the thing about that is, it's not the story themes, it's how you tell them. We all know a story that was told with very cliche or common tropes that was done really well and done really uniquely and written in a great voice. So I'm going to try to not tunnel vision focus on this premise, and I'm just going to write and enjoy it. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to create, and I'm going to meet my characters, and I'm going to have a lot of fun. And I think along the process, it'll be a lot easier for me to pick, decide, and solidify a premise, which I want to do that earlier if possible, but I'm also not going to stress myself into doing it by like November 1st. If I come up with it in the first week, that's great. If I come up with it in the first 20,000 words, that's wonderful. And I really think that that took a lot of stress off of me to come to that conclusion. I have been so much more excited about this project since then. And I know that as soon as I start writing and I find a voice and I tweak it and I sort of get it to where I want, as soon as I do that, the motivation of the character will make a lot more sense. I feel like when I plan motivation before I start writing, that sometimes it doesn't always match up with the voice of the character. So having one thing done before the other makes it a little bit easier. And for me, having the voice done before the motivation is sort of the way my mind tends to work. Because when I hear the voice of a character, it really shapes their attitude and it shapes the way they view the world. And I think that has a lot of impact on motivation. So when it comes to the way my brain works, that's sort of the process that I'm going to be taking. In other news, a small last tidbit of information. I was very set on the fact that I wasn't doing NaNoWriMo this year. It was absolutely impossible with my schedule and everything that I had going on. It was unthinkable to write 50,000 words. Honestly, it was unthinkable to probably write 20,000 words. I was planning on retaking this test in December, really big deal. Between the 2 jobs, YouTube, the hardest class, and the test, I just had so many moving parts in my life. I barely had time to study, let alone write. And it was weighing on my heart because I was so disappointed I made this decision, and NaNoWriMo is one of my favorite seasons of the year, and it's only 1 month out of the year. And then I found out during September, a little bit closer to the end of September, that COVID canceled my test. And I don't want to stop studying, I definitely don't want to give that up, but for some reason, something in my mind switched then and instantly said I took one thing off my plate, I can add another thing. I can do nano. I could write and participate this year. And I stand by that. I was very excited to make that decision as well. And I'm very excited to share the process and experience with you guys because I haven't had a lot of focused writing time lately. So I feel like it'll be very good for me and my creativity and this channel. But through making that realization, I also took it with a grain of salt and decided that I'm not going to be very strict with myself this year. I decided that I'm going to be pretty lenient, actually. So if I make it to 35,000 words, I'm probably going to celebrate because that's pretty awesome in my current state of mind. And if I don't even get close to the 50,000 words, as long as I am making progress and exploring my creative side writing, I'm attending live streams, I'm being an active part of the community during this month, I am totally okay with that. And I hope that if you are in a similar situation in the world where you just have a lot on your plate, that you are also showing yourself a little bit of mercy. And don't forget, my goal for this channel is to help you see the best version of your book on the shelves. So whether you're interested in vlogs and sharing our experience together, or you're interested in my weekly writing related videos that I make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that I'll see you on Monday.